All right. Morning, guys. What's up? Welcome to Fantasy Fact. Starting off another week where football is at hand. I'm very excited. We kicked off yesterday with week 5. Welcome back to those that are joining us after yesterday's podcast, live broadcast, if you will. I am just here to quickly go over this presentation from last night with you, right? I did make some predictions yesterday. Came out pretty well, right? We did good. I'm not gonna lie. So some of the things I noticed from yesterday was basically just a much lower. So I said it yesterday, right? Downgraded for Melvin Gordon. He did see the lion's share of the run production yesterday, and he was saved, right? In my opinion, totally saved by 3 receptions, 50 yards on those receptions. That's awesome. So something we were talking about yesterday, how the Colts D line has just been unbearable, especially for opposing running backs, and Melvin Gordon felt that, especially as the lead back in Denver now that Javonte Williams is gone. So some other people that played, Jerry Jeudy, right? Michael Pittman Jr., Cortland Sutton, 12.4 points. Obviously, Cortland Sutton is the lead wide receiver in that Denver offense, right? Excited to see. Something else I had basically stated yesterday on the video, if you guys watched, yes, he is. He is the number one. I was hoping it would be Jerry Jeudy. I didn't draft Cortland Sutton. I actually went Jeudy in the split decision, right? Because there you had 2 very talented wideouts. You had Jerry Jeudy, you had Cortland Sutton coming into a newer, more talented quarterback that's just joining them now, in Russell Wilson, veteran who knows what he's doing. So it's been interesting to watch them. But I think yesterday definitely proved, 11 targets for Cortland Sutton, quite a bit. And Jerry Jeudy didn't do as well as people were expecting him to do. He saw 8 targets, 3 targets less than Cortland Sutton, right? This is exactly what I was talking about yesterday. This is what I was hoping would come to pass. Not hoping so much as predicting, right? But let's get through this presentation. I know yesterday we were having some problems with the presentations when I was going through the week 4s. And basically just looking at my observations from the game tape. So I have the presentation here for you guys. We're going to go through that really quickly. I actually was not planning on going live today, so this is a impromptu little visit from me. Let's go ahead and get through this, and then we can move on, right? Awesome. So week 4 saw the Dolphins and the Bengals. Tua Tagovailoa injured in this game, out in week 5, still within the concussion protocol. I'm sorry. Joe Burrow had a decently stellar night, 287 yards, and they take it, right? The Bengals take this game. It's easy, quick game for them to take, especially after Tua Tagovailoa is taken out in the second quarter. Is not able to return. T. Higgins, right? T. Higgins outshines Jamar Chase, something I talked about yesterday. Again here for the fourth straight week, not including week 1, because clearly in week 1, Jamar Chase had a monster game, but he just hasn't produced that way since that first game, right? Minnesota and New Orleans, that's 28-25. Minnesota takes this. Justin Jefferson, right? This was the game in London. Justin Jefferson proving that he's matchup proof, coming through big Adam Thielen had a good game. This offense produced against a very stout defense in a London game, so it's worth noting. It's worth mentioning they are a potent offensive unit, especially between Dalvin Cook and Justin Jefferson. It's very interesting, this game, this team's game scheme. Browns, Falcons. Falcons take this one 23-20. Nick Chubb, another great day. If you had Nick Chubb on your fantasy team and you're a fantasy manager, you love Nick Chubb. 118 yards and a touchdown. Jacoby Brissett, not doing as well as we expected him to do. Not really lobbing it up the way that we wanted it to Amari Cooper, right? I don't have Amari Cooper on any of my teams. I did not draft the Browns players. I regret it now, obviously, because Nick Chubb's just been sensational. But on the other end of the ball, Drake London had a horrible day. Kyle Pitts had a horrible day. They're coming into week 5 looking to have a much bigger, much more productive day. And I think that they will. They're too talented not to, right? But Cordero Patterson comes out here with an injury. He'll be gone for 2 to 4 weeks. Algiers has taken over as the lead back. Expect Caleb Huntley to get some work. Drake London didn't even make the receptions list, right? Zacchaeus comes in with 55 yards in this game. So worth noting that none of the offensive playmakers we expected to be noted in this game were noted, right? Just kind of went by them. Tennessee Colts, right? A game we expect the Colts to win. The Colts have been amazing against the run. They were pretty tough against the run if you consider how large and just overall dominant Derrick Henry is as a player. 22 carries, 114 yards, and a touchdown for Henry. If you had him on your team, you were very happy with him. Mo Ali Cox, the tight end for the Colts, apparently just 2 touchdowns today. I don't expect this kind of production to continue from Mo Ali Cox, right? Jonathan Taylor gets slightly injured, high ankle sprain in this game, does not return, leads to a less than favorable fantasy outing. He didn't play yesterday in the game against the Broncos, so no participation in week 5 game, but we're hoping to have him back week 6. Our hearts are with him. We hope him an expeditious recovery. And what else can you say about the number 1 overall draft pick in 2022, right? I don't expect this to continue. I think that he'll come back and he will produce for his managers. So sit tight because it's coming, right? Commanders, Cowboys, what a defensive game this was. The Cowboys just completely stifled the Commanders. I was watching this game live actually on Sunday, and it was hard to watch, especially for me. I have multiple players that are on the Commanders, so it was difficult, right? Especially because the Dallas Cowboys defense looked so good. That's 10-25. Dallas takes this game. The shootout of the week. Seahawks, Lions. Seahawks 48, Lions 45. This was an amazing game. It's going to be an amazing game to recap, right? Geno Smith looking absolutely spectacular, 320 yards. His second game, right, where he throws over 300 yards. Very impressed. 23 out of 30. 23 completions out of 30 attempts. He threw 2 touchdowns and ran 1 in. These are the kinds of numbers you get from like a Lamar Jackson style player, and you're seeing it from Geno Smith. It's impressive. Rashad Penny had 151 yards and 2 touchdowns. I don't expect this to continue from Rashad Penny, but it's worth noting now because it was a massive workload and point total in fantasy, right? Jared Goff threw 4 touchdowns, 378 yards. He threw an interception, but if you played him, he was the most productive quarterback this week in fantasy. I played him in one of my leagues and ended up winning that game because of him. Hawkinson, right? 180 yards almost, basically 180 yards, and 2 touchdowns. 179 yards is a feat in and of itself for a wide receiver. To see that come out of a tight end, amazing. This was great for fantasy managers that were watching. Even if you were a Lions fan and you drafted Lions players, this was great, even though you lost. It's rough to lose. I don't expect the Lions to continue losing, especially after their bye next week when they will be getting back DeAndre Swift, sorry. So again, we'll see what happens with these teams. But this was a shootout. It was really, really fun to watch. Metcalf came in big. The Seahawks came in big and took the win, right? Chargers Texans 34-24. I expected more of a showing from the Chargers front line. They just picked up Khalil Mack, right, in the offseason. They should be stopping these runs. They were unable to stop Dameon Pierce. I do not know why, but he had 14 carries for 131 yards. He also scored a touchdown. That, however, was a non-factor between Eckler and Herbert. Herbert, of course, 340 yards, threw for 2 touchdowns. Austin Eckler ran for 60 yards, 13 attempts, had 2 touchdowns as well. So Chargers take this one, right? 34-24. Good to see. Bears-Giants. Bears-Giants, not a lot happening on the offensive side of the ball here, right? Justin Fields has been the quarterback with the least amount of pass attempts in the league. Chicago Bears 12, New York Giants 20. Daniel Jones 8 of 13 for 71 yards before he went out of this contest with an injury. He rushed for 2 touchdowns, though, important, right? Saquon Barkley looking like Saquon. 31 attempts, 146 yards. It's like dreamy for fantasy managers. New York Giants take this one 20-12, and we are moving on. Jacksonville Jaguars and the Eagles. This was a purely defensive contest, in my opinion, which was awesome to see, right? These are 2 of the best defenses that we've been observing throughout the course of the first 4 games, and they're coming up against one another. The Eagles take this one in the end, right? It's hard to stop Jalen Hurts, my apologies, and Miles Sanders had a huge game, right? 27 carries, 134 yards, and 2 touchdowns. That's a hell of a game, right? And AJ Brown, right? We saw 95 yards here, and that's a massive. I didn't expect the Jaguars' secondary has been relatively good, and they've been putting a lot of pressure on the quarterback. So I didn't expect their skills players to do so well, and they had great games. The skills players on the Jaguars were not as fortunate. Definitely a defensive matchup. The Eagles won. So Eagles take this one, right? 29-21. Good job, Eagles. New York Jets coming up against the Steelers. This was a cool and interesting game. The Jets win this 24-20. Mitch Trubisky comes out in the third quarter. They replace him with Kenny Pickett. Kenny Pickett throws 3 interceptions. This was a very fun and action-filled game to watch. Lots of things happening here. But at the end, New York Jets are able to take this one. Breece Hall, the lead rusher in this scenario, scored a touchdown. Wilson comes in for the first time, throws 36 attempts, completes 18 passes, 252 yards, also threw a touchdown. He also had 2 interceptions, right? Important and worth noting. Corey Davis has been one of their lead pass catchers. in this Jets backfield that's unpredictable, in my opinion, between Garrett Wilson, Corey Davis, Elijah Moore, and Tyler Conklin. But he had a touchdown, right? Corey Davis, 74 yards and a touchdown. Great job by the Jets. Bills Ravens. What a game this was. We saw Allen and Jackson both lead their teams in both rushing and passing, so that's awfully interesting. Josh Allen had one touchdown through the air and one touchdown that he ran in himself, impressively enough. 19 of 36 for 213 yards for Josh Allen. Jackson threw a touchdown. He also threw 2 interceptions, 20 completions on 29 attempts, right? 144 yards. It was all right. This was an all right matchup. I believe that the Bills did a great job of stopping the potent Ravens offense, which made all the difference, right? Once you're able to contain that offense, it just really becomes about putting points on the board. We've all seen Josh Allen put points on the board. So, Cardinals-Panthers. The Panthers have been struggling as of recent. Christian McCaffrey going up against one of the lesser productive defensive lines here. And he did great, right? No reason to worry about McCaffrey. He basically led the team in receptions in this game for 81 yards and a touchdown. Definitely still producing fantasy-wise. What does that say for the pass catchers on the Panthers, though? Not a lot. If you got DJ Moore like I did, then we are hearing the sounds of the lowly violin, right? It is what it is. That's what we got. Cardinals take this one 26-16. Patriots and Packers. Patriots coming up against the Packers in this game. Aaron Rodgers taking on Bailey Zappi, interestingly enough, after they've gone through their first and second string quarterback, the Patriots. So, and it was a close contest, right? Touchdown for Zappi, a touchdown for Damian Harris, 86 yards on 18 attempts. Probably the only fantasy starter on that team, right? The Packers, Rodgers, Jones, of course, leading the charge. Aaron Jones had 110 yards. He's just looked outstanding this year, and they've been getting a lot of usage out of him. Alan Lazard having his first big game, coming in with 116 yards. Things are looking up, right? Things are looking up for the Packers. We're expecting better things. Broncos, Raiders. Raiders take this game, which is going to be rough, right? Because the Broncos, we just saw them lose to Indianapolis yesterday. But their woes will come out of it. Russell Wilson had a huge game here in last week's game against the Raiders. He had 2 touchdowns through the air, 1 touchdown that he ran in. So that's a big deal. This was the game where Javonte Williams came out, torn ACL, I believe. He won't be back for the remainder of the season, right? And then the Raiders. Raiders did great. Derek Carr did a good job. Josh Jacobs really outshining here. 144 yards, 28 carries, 2 touchdowns, leading this Raiders charge to a victory. So that's awesome. Kansas City against the Buccaneers. We're expecting this to be a will they or won't they kind of situation. Will they be able to limit the potent Kansas City Chief offense, or won't they? Will they be able to put the stop on Patrick Mahomes, the Patrick Mahomes train, or won't they? And they were not able. They were not able to. It was definitely a won't they kind of day for the Tampa Bay Bucs defense that has been a top 5 unit since opening up the year. But Mahomes is Mahomes. Mahomes makes magic where there is none to be found. So Tom Brady getting his licks in too, right? Not gonna go away silently. 385 yards thrown by Tom Brady on 52 attempts, 39 completions, yards for Mike Evans on 8 receptions. He had 2 touchdowns in this game. So, not going to go away silently. They definitely tried. And lastly is our Monday night game, Rams and the 49ers. If you are a 49ers fan, wow, you loved this. This was amazing. The 49ers defense looking stellar, as it has been. Number 1 defense against the run to this point. And we're looking forward to seeing more out of them. Deebo Samuel, George Kittle finally coming back, being fully healthy. This is a team worth watching, and they might be on the rise, right? They have a lot of talent, especially in their defensive unit, and they could go far. They did take out the Rams, the 2021 champions. They held Matthew Stafford to a horrible game, fantasy-wise. No touchdowns, an interception, and only 254 yards through the air. And Cam Akers and that backfield, even less. Cam Akers had 8 attempts for 3 yards. This backfield is this San Francisco backfield is amazing. They are stopping everyone. All right, guys. Well, that's the presentation that I had basically botched the other day. So I'm gonna take you guys through the cheat sheet so you guys can have the cheat sheet. If you're looking at my cheat sheet for the Bucks, for the Falcons versus the Bucks this week, we have Tyler Algiers in the 3rd position. London and Pitts still make my list because of their usage. And then the Bears, you can't really see, but Montgomery coming back. I'm not starting Mooney. I'm probably sitting Mooney just because of how little this offense has thrown the pass. Saquon Barkley for the Giants. Jamal Williams still in with an injury to DeAndre Swift, so keep him in your lineup. St. Brown might not be out. He might be out. I put him on this list as out with Swift just in case. We'll see what happens there. I would definitely maintain an eye on that because it could happen that he practices today and then he's back. From what I saw yesterday, he wasn't practicing. So unless he makes a miraculous comeback today and you see him as a full participant in practice, I would bet on probably not seeing him on Raw again. Olave making my list for the first time this week. Last week he was a question mark. This week he is cemented. He's got the target share. Michael Thomas going to be out with a toe injury. Definitely plug Olave in. Kelsey and Mahomes, of course. Cook and Jefferson. Dalton Schultz and CeeDee Lamb. Dalton Schultz, somebody that hasn't really been producing much for his fantasy managers. But I think that better days are to come for Dalton Schultz, especially with Dak Prescott on the mend. Should be back very soon. Derrick Henry, an automatic start and the only start in Tennessee. Kirk back on this list after last week's outing was subpar. Robinson going up against the Texans, I believe, is going to be upgraded. So keep that in mind. If you have Robinson in your fantasy lineup, go ahead and start him with confidence. So this is a big one for me. The Texans, Cooks is on here automatically as just the lead, the premier target on that offense. Here's the big one. Pierce has a question mark next to his name for the first time over the course of 4 weeks. I'll tell you why. This is a Damon Pierce coming up against this Jacksonville front that has been unstoppable, right? The Jacksonville Jaguars have been basically 5th against the run overall in the NFL. 3.5 yards allowed, 3.6 yards allowed per carry. I don't expect a big game from Dameon Pierce. Expect Dameon Pierce to be down on my list. Mike Evans, not Mike Williams. For the Bucks, my apologies there. Mike Williams is included, however, in our Chargers list, and so is Austin Eckler and Justin Herbert, especially after Allen has missed all week of practice. So no Keenan Allen, leaning towards starting Mike Williams. So Colts, Jonathan Taylor's out, so hopefully you guys took him out of your lineups yesterday. I did make a quick reference to that before the game started in yesterday's video. Jamar Chase, Joe Mixon, T. Higgins for the Bengals. Put them all in. If you got Joe Burrow, you don't have another option at quarterback that's been within the top 5, then I would go with Joe Burrow. Plus, Joe Burrow looked great last week against Miami, regardless of the tragedy that happened with Tua. So we're moving on there. Deontay Johnson, Najee Harris, and Kenny Pickett all getting downgrades. Kenny Pickett should have a question mark on him, not Deontay Johnson. There's another typo, but we'll see. We'll see if Kenny Pickett remains on this list. And I'll tell you why, because we know the other two are going to get the workload. So now it's simply up to Kenny Pickett to basically show us what's up. All right. So these are our lists for touchdown leaders. Throwing touchdowns are Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, and Jared Goff, believe it or not. This was something I alluded to earlier this week. And receiving touchdowns, right? Cooper Kupp, Jahan Dotson, am I right? Like, where did that one come from? And Stephon Diggs, obviously at the top of this list. Devontae Adams. 2 tight ends on this list, Travis Kelce and Mark Andrews. Very interesting. Rushing touchdowns, Jamal Williams of the Lions. Look at that. Leads all running backs in rushing touchdowns after week 4. Incredible. Nick Chubb, a close second. And Jalen Hurts on this list, right? Jalen Hurts on both of these lists. He's all the way at the bottom of the TD leader list, of course. Only has 4 throwing touchdowns, but, you know, he's 3rd on the list for rushing touchdowns. So if you combine his, 4 thrown touchdowns with his 4 running touchdowns, he actually has a total of 8 touchdowns on the season. Would put him more in the, Joe Burrow, Tua Tagovailoa, Carson Wentz, Trevor Lawrence discussion. And I think he's a more talented quarterback than them, right? That's just my take. Here's our usage numbers for the day. Go ahead and take a look at these. It's important, in my opinion, to understand how each of these offenses has been functioning. Joe Flacco is here, 155 pass attempts. That should also include the 36 pass attempts that Zach Wilson had, but less passing from Zach Wilson, right? Less passing than we saw from Joe Flacco. So that's worth making a note of. I think that could affect the Jets' pass catchers. Interesting little tidbit. Top targets, obviously, Hollywood Brown, Tyreek Hill, Devontae Adams, and Cooper Kupp. All at the top of this. CeeDee Lamb and Justin Jefferson, not far off, right? Jamar Chase, Garrett Wilson, surprisingly. That's someone that surprised me, as well as Tyler Higbee. Tyler Higbee and Garrett Wilson have been leading this, have been leading their teams basically in targets, with the exception of Cooper Kupp. Tyler Higbee is part of a very pass-heavy offense, and he's part of an offense that can support Cooper Kupp getting 12 looks, and then also have another passing option, see 8 targets or 9 targets. And he's been benefiting from that. Attempts for running backs. Joe Mixon at the top of this list. Joe Mixon probably not the most productive scorer in the league thus far, especially with that Bengals O-line that's been just eating away at Joe Burrow. But his usage is here. This is why he's been such a successful fantasy back, and I expect this to continue from Joe Mixon. Saquon Barkley, right? Most attempts than anybody else in the league through 4 weeks. Very impressive. Josh Jacobs on this list, worth mentioning. Miles Sanders on this list is worth mentioning. Dameon Pierce comes in at number 11. Najee Harris all the way at the bottom of the list behind James Robinson. So hoping to see more from Najee. All right, guys. Let's go through our running back and O-line versus the defensive line. Yesterday we saw Melvin Gordon as the primary back go up against the Colts defense that ranks second overall. I don't think that's going to change after what I saw yesterday. The Colts D looked very good. Both their passing D and their running D. I'm mostly talking about their running D here, but it's been impressive. We saw Melvin Gordon struggle against them, so that's a big deal. On the other end, Jonathan Taylor injured. Naheem Hines, the lead back until he suffered a concussion. So more uncertainty in that backfield, although I don't expect Jonathan Taylor to be out a very long time. If Naheem Hines isn't there as a supplemental back next week, that might mean a very heavy workload for Jonathan Taylor. CMC going up against the 49ers. I'm downgrading Christian McCaffrey. Christian McCaffrey has been downgraded. I'm downgrading Dameon Pierce against the Jags and this stellar Jags defense that we've been seeing just crush it. I'm downgrading Josh Jacobs against the Chiefs defense that ranks third against the running back, oddly enough. But definitely going to downgrade him here because I know he just had a big game, but he's coming up against a tough challenge. And then obviously Najee Harris against the Bills. And we already talked about Melvin Gordon, who was on my downgrade list as of yesterday. Upgrades. If Alvin Kamara is active, go with Alvin Kamara. Oh, sorry, guys. Alvin Kamara, a clear upgrade, as well as Robinson and the Jaguars going up against the Houston line that has been more or less shoddy. They can improve. They have an immense amount of talent, but they haven't been producing the way that we would want them to produce, right? Najee against the Bills, clearly a downgrade. Nick Chubb and Austin Eckler going up against one another's defenses. The Steelers are 30th. The Chargers are 31st overall in this specific section, and the Steelers O-line is awful, right? So this is going to just be, we're going to see what happens in, not the Steelers O-line, I'm sorry, the Browns O-line. Has just been rough to watch. The D-line on the Browns, on the other hand, is getting Myles Garrett back this time around. So hopefully that will pose more of a problem for Eckler. However, we expected more from the Chargers defensive line, right? So we expected them to be grandiose. They acquired Khalil Mack in the offseason. Nick Chubb has been spectacular. I feel like this will be their first heavy test because really they went up against Dameon Pierce, and Dameon Pierce just kind of ran all over him. So if Nick Chubb's able to do that in this game, then we're going to see him come out with another very impressive fantasy showing. Upgrading any of the... I'm upgrading the Bears running backs, and I'm upgrading any running back that you might see as a starter in the Commanders' offense. Gibson has been losing target share and has been losing carries, right? But their matchup this week is looking good. So if you do think that, like, let's go over this. Look. The Commanders are going up against the Titans, who have been kind of lax against the overall run. The Vikings against the Bears. I'm expecting big games for both Cooks and for Montgomery. The run game has been very heavy in Chicago. So finally, you guys are able to see this video appropriately with the correct designation. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm going to be signing off. This has been Fantasy Fact. If you guys have any questions or any inquiries, go ahead and email me at fantasyfactuals@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter at fantasyfactuals and subscribe, right? Fantasy Fact channel on YouTube. Thank you guys so much for joining us. I hope that this helps you guys set your lineups or just gives you a different perspective on where players should be at for the week, right? So signing out. Peace out, guys. Thank you so much for watching. You guys have a great day, and we'll see you guys again on Tuesday for our roundups.